The rain had been falling steadily for 3 hours when I finally decided to duck into Romano's Bistro on 5th Street. My clothes were soaked through despite the umbrella, and my worn sneakers squelched with every step across the polished marble entrance. I'd been conducting undercover inspections all week, blending into the city's restaurant scene to observe actual operating conditions rather than the sanitized versions establishments typically presented during scheduled visits. My name is Dr. Margaret Foster, and for the past 15 years, I've been the Senior Health Inspector for King County's Food Service Division. What most people don't realize is that effective food safety enforcement requires understanding how restaurants actually operate when they think nobody's watching. Scheduled inspections, while necessary, only capture a fraction of the real story. The restaurants that truly threaten public health are the ones that maintain two sets of standards. One for official visits, another for daily operations. Romano's had been on my watch list for 6 months. 3 separate complaints about food poisoning, 2 reports of rodent activity, and 1 anonymous tip from a former employee about severe violations in the kitchen. But every scheduled inspection had come back clean, suspiciously clean. Giuseppe Romano, the owner, had a reputation for running a tight ship and maintaining connections with local officials. He'd been operating in the district for 12 years without a single major citation. I'd spent the morning observing from a coffee shop across the street, noting the delivery practices, waste management procedures and general cleanliness protocols. What I'd seen raised several red flags. Deliveries were left unattended on the loading dock, trash bins overflowed with food waste that attracted insects, and I'd watched 2 employees handle raw meat without changing gloves before moving to other food preparation tasks. The interior of Romano's was exactly what you'd expect from an upscale Italian restaurant. Exposed brick walls, soft lighting, and the kind of deliberately rustic decor that suggested authentic European charm. The lunch crowd was thinning out, leaving mostly business people finishing their meals and a few tourists lingering over wine. The hostess, a young woman with perfectly styled hair and a practiced smile, looked up as I approached. "Good afternoon," she said, her expression faltering slightly as she took in my appearance. "Do you have a reservation?" I glanced down at myself, seeing what she saw. A middle-aged woman in rain-soaked clothes, carrying a worn leather bag and looking nothing like their typical clientele. My deliberately casual appearance was part of the strategy. People revealed their true nature when they thought you couldn't affect their livelihood. "No reservation," I said. "Just looking for a table for one." She hesitated, glancing toward the dining room where well-dressed patrons sat at crisp white tablecloths. "I'm sorry, but we're quite busy today. Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the casual dining establishments down the street." The suggestion was delivered with practiced politeness, but the message was clear. I didn't belong here. "I'd prefer to eat here," I said calmly. "I can see several empty tables." Before she could respond, a booming voice interrupted from behind her. Giuseppe Romano emerged from the kitchen area, his white chef's coat spotless and his dark hair slicked back with precision. He was a large man in his 50s, with the kind of commanding presence that came from years of running his own establishment. "Is there a problem here, Linda?" he asked, his eyes scanning me with the efficiency of someone accustomed to making quick judgments about people's worth. "This lady would like a table," Linda replied carefully, "but as I was explaining, we're quite busy." "We don't serve homeless people," Romano declared loudly enough that several nearby diners turned to look. His voice carried the authority of someone who'd never been successfully challenged on his own territory. "This is a respectable establishment. We have standards to maintain." The dining room fell quiet, conversations pausing as patrons tried to process what they'd just witnessed. I felt the familiar calm that came over me when people revealed their character so completely. In 15 years of health inspection work, I'd encountered every type of food service operator, from dedicated professionals who genuinely cared about public safety to corner-cutting bullies who viewed regulations as obstacles to profit. Romano clearly fell into the latter category. "I see," I said neutrally, reaching into my bag. "In that case, I suppose we should discuss those standards." I pulled out my county health department credentials, the official badge catching the restaurant's soft lighting. Romano's confident expression faltered as he processed what he was seeing. "Dr. Margaret Foster, King County Health Department," I said, my voice carrying the professional authority that came from years of regulatory enforcement. "This is a surprise inspection effective immediately." The color drained from Romano's face so quickly I thought he might collapse. Behind him, Linda's eyes widened with dawning horror as she realized what had just transpired. "Inspector Foster," Romano stammered, his earlier bravado evaporating like steam from his kitchen. "I had no idea. If I'd known you were—" "That's exactly the point," I interrupted, pulling out my inspection tablet and official documentation. "Surprise inspections are designed to observe actual operating conditions, not the performance you put on for scheduled visits." I looked around the dining room, noting the details I'd been cataloging since entering. The silverware on table 7 showed water spots suggesting inadequate sanitization. The server at table 3 had been handling dirty plates and clean glasses without washing her hands. Most concerning was the subtle but unmistakable odor of cleaning chemicals mixed with food preparation smells, a combination that often indicated rushed sanitization efforts. "Now then," I continued, activating the recording function on my tablet, "let's begin with your food handling procedures. I'd like to see your temperature logs for the walk-in coolers, your employee health certification records, and your pest control documentation for the past 6 months." Romano's mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound. The transformation was remarkable, from arrogant authority figure to panicked businessman in the span of 30 seconds. "Of course," he finally managed. "Everything's in perfect order. We run a very clean operation here." "I'm sure you do," I replied, making notes on my tablet. "That's why we'll conduct a thorough examination of your facilities. Starting with the kitchen." As we moved toward the kitchen area, I could see Romano's panic intensifying. He kept glancing at his staff, no doubt wondering what violations I might discover during my week of observation. What he didn't know was that I'd been documenting everything: the improper storage practices, the temperature abuse, the cross-contamination issues I'd witnessed through the front windows. The kitchen told a very different story than the polished dining room. Prep surfaces showed evidence of inadequate cleaning, with food debris still visible along the edges of cutting boards. The hand-washing sink was being used for dish storage, forcing employees to walk across the kitchen to wash their hands, if they bothered at all. Most damning was the walk-in cooler, where raw chicken was stored directly above prepared salads, creating a textbook case of cross-contamination risk. "Mr. Romano," I said, photographing the violations with my tablet's camera, "can you explain why raw poultry is stored above ready-to-eat foods in your cooler?" That must be a mistake," he said, sweat beginning to form on his forehead despite the kitchen's air conditioning. "My staff knows proper storage procedures." "I'm sure they do. Can you show me your temperature logs for this cooler?" Food safety regulations require temperatures to be monitored and recorded every 4 hours. Romano led me to a clipboard hanging near the cooler door. The temperature log showed consistent recordings every 4 hours for the past week, each entry in the same handwriting with identical readings. It was obviously fabricated. Real temperature logs showed natural variation based on door openings, ambient temperature changes, and equipment cycles. "Interesting," I said, making detailed notes. "Your cooler maintains exactly 38 degrees every 4 hours, regardless of external factors. That's remarkably consistent." "We have excellent equipment," Romano replied weakly. "Indeed. Let's check the actual temperature, shall we?" I pulled my calibrated thermometer from my inspection kit and took readings at multiple points within the cooler. The temperatures ranged from 41 to 45 degrees, well above the safe zone for perishable foods and completely contradicting the fabricated logs. "Mr. Romano, your actual temperatures are running between 41 and 45 degrees, while your logs show a consistent 38. How do you account for this discrepancy?" His face had gone from pale to gray, and I could see his hands trembling slightly as he realized the magnitude of his situation. Temperature abuse was a serious violation that could result in immediate closure, particularly when combined with falsified documentation. "There must be a problem with the equipment," he said desperately. "We had it serviced just last week. Do you have documentation of that service?" It should be in the office somewhere. We'll need to review that documentation, along with your employee training records, your cleaning schedules, and your pest control reports." Over the next 2 hours, I conducted the most thorough inspection of my career. Every violation I'd observed during my week of surveillance was confirmed and documented. Improper food storage, Inadequate hand-washing facilities, falsified temperature logs, evidence of rodent activity, cross-contamination risks, and employees working without proper health certifications. The final tally was devastating: 17 major violations and 23 minor infractions. Under county regulations, any establishment with more than 10 major violations faced immediate closure pending corrective action. Romano sat in his office, staring at the inspection report with the expression of a man watching his world collapse. His restaurant, which had operated with impunity for over a decade, was about to be shut down by the same health inspector he'd refused to serve lunch. "Inspector Foster," he said quietly, his earlier arrogance completely gone, "is there any way we can work something out? I have employees depending on this place. Families who need their jobs." I looked at him across his cluttered desk, thinking about the hundreds of customers who'd unknowingly consumed food prepared under these conditions. How many had gotten sick? How many had trusted his establishment to maintain basic safety standards while he cut corners and falsified records? "Mr. Romano, food safety isn't negotiable. Your establishment poses a clear and present danger to public health. Until these violations are corrected and you can demonstrate sustained compliance with health regulations, Romano's Bistro will remain closed." I handed him the official closure notice, watching as he read the requirements for reopening. Deep cleaning and sanitization of all food preparation areas. Replacement of contaminated food products. Repair or replacement of malfunctioning refrigeration equipment. Complete retraining of all food service employees. Third-party verification of all corrective actions. "How long?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "That depends entirely on how quickly you can address these violations and demonstrate compliance. Minimum 2 weeks, assuming you pass reinspection. Could be longer if additional issues are discovered." As I prepared to leave, Romano made one final plea. "Inspector Foster, about earlier, what I said when you came in. I didn't mean anything by it. I was just trying to maintain the restaurant's image." I stopped at his office door, turning back to face him. "Mr. Romano, what you said earlier revealed exactly who you are. Just like what I found in your kitchen revealed exactly how you run your business. Both were very illuminating. I understand you're angry about that, but—" "I'm not angry," I interrupted. "I'm disappointed. You had 12 years to build a restaurant that genuinely served your community with safe, quality food. Instead, you chose to cut corners, falsify records, and discriminate against customers based on their appearance. The closure isn't punishment for insulting me. It's protection for every person who might have eaten contaminated food from your kitchen." 2 weeks later, I received Romano's application for reinspection. He'd hired a professional cleaning service, replaced thousands of dollars worth of contaminated inventory, and enrolled his entire staff in a certified food safety training program. The refrigeration equipment had been repaired and recalibrated, and he'd implemented new monitoring procedures to ensure accurate temperature documentation. The reinspection revealed a dramatically different establishment. Storage procedures were properly implemented, cleaning schedules were being followed, and employees demonstrated genuine understanding of food safety protocols. Romano himself had completed advanced food service management training and obtained his manager's certification. "Inspector Foster," he said as I completed my final walkthrough, "I want you to know that I've learned from this experience. Not just about food safety but about treating people with respect regardless of how they look or where they come from." I nodded, completing my inspection checklist. "That's good to hear, Mr. Romano. But the real test isn't what you say, it's how you operate when nobody's watching." "I understand. And I want you to know that what happened that day, I was wrong. Completely wrong. I judged you based on your appearance and I treated you with disrespect. I'm ashamed of that." Romano's Bistro reopened 3 weeks after the initial closure. The local food service community had taken notice of the shutdown, and word spread quickly about the importance of maintaining consistent safety standards. Other restaurant owners began requesting voluntary consultations to ensure their own compliance, knowing that inspections could happen anytime, conducted by inspectors who might not look like what they expected. 6 months later, I conducted a follow-up inspection at Romano's. The establishment was operating at exemplary levels, with safety protocols that exceeded minimum requirements. Romano had become an advocate for food safety training in the local restaurant association, sharing his experience as a cautionary tale about the importance of consistent compliance. But the most significant change was cultural. During my follow-up visit, I observed Romano personally greeting every customer who entered his restaurant, regardless of their appearance or apparent economic status. He'd hired a more diverse staff and implemented policies that emphasized respectful service for all patrons. "Inspector Foster," he said as I concluded my inspection, "I have something I'd like to ask you." "What's that?" "Would you consider having lunch here? As my guest? I promise the food is safe now, and I guarantee you'll be treated with the respect you deserved from the beginning." I smiled, thinking about how far he'd come from the man who'd refused to serve a soaked health inspector 6 months earlier. "Mr. Romano, I'd be happy to have lunch here. But I'll pay for my own meal." That's what regular customers do. Sometimes the best lessons come disguised as the worst days. Romano learned that true professionalism means maintaining standards whether or not anyone is watching, and treating every person with dignity regardless of their appearance. And I was reminded that effective enforcement isn't about punishment. It's about creating lasting change that protects public health and human dignity alike.